us. All the time. This is expressed, among other things, in the fact that the Torah is different. Prophecy is different. Prayer is different. This means that everything is close. The Holy One, blessed be He, is close to you. The thing is very close. You pray. Read and I will answer. You learn within the words of the Torah of man, there is the word of God, as if the Torah and prophecy are connected to each other. The reality is a reality that the Holy One, blessed be He, dwells within us. This has many meanings, both physical as we mentioned earlier, and also spiritual. It is not for nothing that the world from tomorrow flows to here and all beings flow to it as a place where there is a place. So many appearances of the name are something that attracts people to this day. The appearance of the name is words, not deeds. You know, there is in the mind, there is in the feeling, there is in the emotion, but with the eyes, sometimes you don't see. You talk about one thing and see something else. But in the Holy Land of Israel, blessed be He, He says, I will be here. You invest within yourselves. You will see it with your senses, how it exists, how it is carried out, and my soul will not abhor you. Yes, and I walked among you, and I will be your God, and you will be like a people. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt. They will be their slaves. And death will break you and you will be like death. So the climax here is, and death will break you and you will be like death. The Rambam says, according to the opinion of Samuel in the Gemara, who says that there is nothing between this world and the death of the Messiah, but only the slavery of kings. And everything that is written here is a middle ground. This means that we do not return under the nations of the world. There is also a reality called the resurrection of the dead, which is understood by most people as real. This is the vision of the dry bones in Ezekiel. And whoever looks there in the book, the vision of the dry bones. Besides being the shaft of people, individuals who arise in the grave, there is a very, very simple thing that is written in the verse itself. Yes. These bones are the whole house of Israel. Emma explains. Gol understands. He says the people of Israel as a people, not alone as a people. The people in the destruction of the house died. The reality of a people that we were as one man with one heart. This is something that died in the destruction of the house. We were no longer a people. They were alone. They were parts of the people of Israel, but not always alone. They are a people, can be alone. They are not a people. There was something of the people left in us, as he describes it, like a dead person found in the grave. So the body is still found. Yes, the bones are found, the flesh is found, he says. And slowly we are losing during the days of exile. Slowly the reality of our people. These are Yemenites and these are Moroccans and these are Ashkenazim and these are Sephardim. And these are Persians, and each one has a different custom. We almost no longer have what solidifies us into one unit. We have already become communities. Yes, we have really become associations. And then we continue to crumble and lose all our national vitality. It is death being in exile. It is a bed being in the grave. Yes, when the Torah says, and I raised you up your graves, and I will bring you to the land of Israel. We are returning to live as a people. The same people that was a dead people suddenly come back to life. This people is alive. It is not that so and unknown Reuben and Shimon were dead and now they are alive. It is the reality of a people that did not exist. It is coming back to life. By the way, one of the greatest theological debates that Islam has, Judaism, Among us is a stupid force. Yes, but they insist. The people of the Egyptian Zohar University. What is their claim? Judaism is not a people. It is a religion like there is Christianity in the world. True. Christianity is not a people. There is a religion. Islam is a religion. It is not a people. There is Judaism. It is a religion. It is not a people. So what are you doing? Demanding the right to a state? Yes. But you came to curse and were found blessing. It is like Balaam. They help define reality. You are what you are. We are not a people. You are simply blind. In the face of reality, the people of Israel have been a people throughout history. Even Pharaoh said, "Here is the people of the children of Israel. We are a people, loud and mighty. What can we do? We were a people and we returned to the land." So you can say that you see that the children of Israel are not. It exists. You erase it from the map. It won't exist in your imagination. It might not exist. You can say, "You're not a people." I remember the 6 days. I was a child. But I remember my parents listening to the radio tape and laughing. I tell them, "Dad, how funny. Mom, how funny." They told me what that means. What's funny? You're listening to Radio El Aram in Egypt right now, describing how he captured Beersheba. He captured David and captured Ashkelon. He conquered Zion. And it's Tel Aviv and soon Petah Tikva. And that's how the radio on Hara describes in its imagination. Yes, Israel is already on the march. Soon, he describes in his imagination how they're capturing Ashkelon like Tel Aviv. So in their imaginations, the map doesn't say they're in Israel. In their imaginations, we're not a people. We're just a religion. But they also dig for candles with the letter Pes. Or, for that matter, we need to look at another. We need to look at reality. But we need to know that they live in some kind of imagination. In this statement, especially when they say that we're not with this imagination, we're with. And this is our basic thing that we are returning to live as a people in exile. Where did they get this mistake? It is because of the fact that in exile we were not a people. They called us a people. We tried with all our might to function like a people. We care about each other like a people. Yes, metaphorically, we go and take care of others. We take care of others. Yes, we respond as a people as one body, but we were really not one body. The exile says, we return to the land. We return to live as a people. This is the resurrection of the dead. The people of Israel return to being as one unit. This is the resurrection of the dead. These bones that we are talking about to different tribes. This is how it says, there is a tree of Ephraim and a tree of Judah. This is right in the same chapter. This is one bone. This is this tribe. And another bone. This is that tribe. And another bone. This is another tribe. And together, all the bones connect and are covered with light and flesh and blood. And my spirit is with them. And they live. And then the people rise to life. The people who died in exile rise to life. This is how the exile explains the concept of resurrection. And we, the people of exile, live. Today, we are experiencing this concept of resurrection in practice. We see it. We see that things that did not exist within us for thousands of years suddenly arise in our midst. This does not contradict the reality of the resurrection of an unknown person who passed away and died. For example, the Gemara says about Moses, Moses, it is written, you will lie down with your fathers and rise. The Gemara says from here to the resurrection of the dead. The Torah and the Gemara say, the spread of the dead in every generation, there is Moses. Here you will see a perspective for understanding the concept of resurrection. What is resurrection? The fact that Moses' spirit returns all the time. Yes, Moses' Torah. Moses' desire for redemption. Moses' aspiration for Israel. This means that in every generation of Moses, there are those who expect to see Moses rise in a different painting from his childhood. It is possible that he expects a figure. That may be so. I don't know. But the other example that the Gemara brings about the resurrection of the dead is all and sundry. The Gemara says, how do you throw it into the ground? Bury it in the ground. And from this process, in the end, wheat grows, and not just one wheat, but many wheats, and not only was it buried without clothes, and now it grows with clothes. You grow with people, with chaff, with straw, and all kinds of wrappings, says the Gemara. It is easy and simple. What is wheat that is sown? A person who is sown in moist soil grows. And how much does it grow? You need to understand what this easy and simple means. It tells you to look at reality. All reality is a reality of the movement of the circle of life. Yes, every tree, a tomato, a cedar tree, a monkey that dies. In order. The monkey that dies dies. He dies. He is buried in the ground. From it, in the end, life grows. In the end, life returns to life. There is a process of a circle of life that is constantly revolving and going. The Gemara says, you look at the leaf, the wheat, and from it you learn the circle of life. Yes, people also have a circle of life and it returns to life. And also in the details. How do they live? It is the same face, the same image, the same bank account. Apparently not. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. I didn't know. A person until he is. But according to the simplicity of the words of the Gemara, life returns all the time. Father, we are coming out of a period when we are dead and see how life returns. There are many amazing stories about life returning, but one of the examples is this house, for example, which was a house that was in ruins. It died and was rebuilt and came back to life. Oh, there is a place I once saw near a settlement of Eliyahu. Tree that was planted in the ground 2,000 years ago and apparently along with the destruction of the house and its roots were still in the ground. Living. But they were underground and everything was desolate and no one cared for that place until a farmer came and lost that piece of land and he saw that everything was built in the form of terraces, in the form of steps. So he realized that before him there were farmers here thousands of years ago, but from the time the house was built until now no one has cared for them, and Arabs like that don't build terraces. They are just what was in the past. In short, he began to arrange the land and he saw that there were roots of living trees there from the Second Temple period that were planted underground to grow at the right moment. And when he came, he began to cultivate that piece of land. Those trees came back to life. This is not a resurrection of the dead. This is a real resurrection of the dead. This is the same reality of life that would return when it returned to the people of Israel. Prophecy is a creation of a man of this kind. This is a resurrection of the dead. The resurrection of the dead is a prophecy that the dead come back to life. The heroism that died comes back to life. Unity that died comes back to life. The Torah that died. Yes, in some place, the Torah outside the land was death. The verse says, He made me sit in darkness as if the world had never existed. This is the Talmud of Babylon. What does the Holy One, blessed be He, mean? He made us sit in darkness as if the world had never existed? The Gemara says, He made us sit in darkness as if the world had never existed. This is the Talmud of Babylon. We study the Torah, the Babylonian Talmud. We study it with great eagerness. True. But still, this Talmud is. There is something in it that is not alive. And in this place, there is a resurrection of truths. There is a resurrection of truths that are studied in a much more vivid and powerful and prophetic and illuminating way. The servant of the Shekinah is a process that the Torah describes. The resurrection of the dead. But it is a process that is either parallel or in the second stage. After the gathering of the exiles, after the enslavement of kingdoms. That are not. Yes, these are processes. There are processes that are. Processes of works in David, which is already the Messiah, the son of David, which is another stage, and this is also something that we are facing. Yes, the kingdoms of today, even though we may not be lecturing from it. It is much healthier than the monarchy that existed at the time of the establishment of the state. The establishment of the state was a beautiful, strong monarchy. Ben-Gurion, Moshe Dayan. I don't know that. They have many rights, but we just tell ourselves that we will not return to the days of the past. That's right. We do. And we want to return to them. With all their virtues, there were things that needed to be corrected. The monarchy today is much more corrected than it was in the past. That's right. And we are moving forward with a monarchy that is becoming disconnected from many generations. But in some sense, only in the sense of how it is organized, not in the sense of the people who work and the corruption and the mess. I'm talking about the spark of corruption and the mess. I think that situation is better. Certainly. During Ben-Gurion's time, there was a reality in which people allowed themselves to cut off their wigs and treat new immigrants in a humiliating way. Let's say, from certain countries. This is something that does not exist today. Today, wigs are not cut off, and today, they are not humiliated. One part of the people also needs to remember that there was a period during the time of Moshe Dayan when the treatment of people was more exemplary and more than just, and it was legitimate and natural and acceptable and in order, and no one made a big deal out of it, and today it is not. We can sometimes say that the situation today is not the best, but if we put the situation today back to the reality that once was, it is heaven and earth. There are many other things that the country has progressed in terms of the monarchy. The monarchy is not the same monarchy. The word division. One more word. The equal division used to be horrible. The monarchy used to divide its assets. It was not proportional at all. I once dragged Shlomi. I remember the head of the council who was in Shlomi told me at the time. Look, Shlomi is a town and the kibbutzim around it went up in land less. In those years, all the land was given to the kibbutzim. All the activity was given to the kibbutzim. All the water reservoirs, the water supply, the milk supply, from the ownership of the eggs, this is felt. All the kibbutzim in Soda received. And this settlement that was a place of immigrants, what did it get the right to be workers? Someone distributed this wrong division in ancient times, and God willing, the country has improved in these areas. There are other distorted things. It may be that there are things that need to be improved, but the monarchy is getting better in the range of 50-60 years. The monarchy is much better than what it was in the past. There is pressure from certain nations, or we are financially dependent on the nations of the world. Yes, even in this it does not count as a debt, it does not count as a it is not full bones it is. We are sitting here, there is a government, but those who play on the same strings other it definitely has. There is definitely an influence of the nations of the world. To say that we are enslaved is really, I think, the wrong word. There was a period, I remember in my youth, there was a period when Israel lived on its own money of America's. It would not have been possible to close the annual budget without the economic grant from America. About 20 years ago it stopped. We are finished. We do not live off the grant. We are now, Israel's economy is not in deficit. It does not live on loans. Israel has already repaid its loans. We used to live on loans. Today in Israel the expenses are less than income used to be. It was the other way around. Israel today is no longer dependent on the nations of the world. Can Netanyahu come to the United States and come enter Congress and say to Obama inside, I do not agree with you, to fight with him in his house, not in our house, in his house? To fight with him is a thing. If there was no courage in this world, this ability is to come and conquer the queen. In this house, it is true that we have a certain dependence on death. We are constantly freeing ourselves from it. So, it is not complete and complete independence, but it is in a process of growth towards independence. This is not called enslavement to kingdoms. There is no doubt about it. This is still called a certain subordination, a certain consideration. Enslavement. It is certainly not enslavement. If we were enslaved to them, there would be no country today. Yes, if I pray for the resurrection of the dead. When I say that I believe in the resurrection of the dead, I do not believe that all the dead will be conquered and will rise again. It is not supposed to be a Haman. What is it, in simple terms? It is like someone who dies in the grave is supposed to rise again. The word, in its literal sense, is here. I think it needs to be explained. I do not know how the resurrection of the dead will be. Rambam writes that no one knew until it happened in what way it would be. But some of the explanations that explain the beginning of the dead are the explanations that I brought earlier. The people who died with the people come back to life, and this is built into the verses. We mentioned that there are processes in which things change form and grow. Like wheat. Wheat is not the same wheat that you sell. It is the wheat that grew. That's right. This is the example that has brings. It is from this wheat. In the process of transformation, wheat grew. We know that it comes from the same power. The Gemara says that the wheat that grew eventually used organic materials that were in the soil. They were creatures, or plants that died. That's right. So, in the end, what grew is built on lives that have passed. The Gemara says, like this, in souls. How does it look in wheat? It doesn't look the same. It looks like the same thing doesn't look the same. Maybe in souls. It's like this too. We don't know how it happens. What is clear here is a process of growth on top of lives that were or from lives that were. We say, like, blessed are you, God, the living dead. I don't know why. I died from the life of the dead. We know from the life of the dead that you say in prayer 18. This is us. We are the life of the dead. We are people who are responsible. This is called the life of the dead. It's not the future resurrection of the dead. But as if we hadn't actually died. When we changed, it's like, kind of, examinations of death. But yes, this is the meaning dead. This is a type of dead and a type of life. This is in the context of also the year, not also of a year, right? Returns souls, corpses of dead, but this is an example. But in terms of the life of the dead, it really pay attention what you say. Rain falls and the earth is dead, comes back to life. The trees that were as if dead all winter come back to grow leaves. Right? Dr. Sick K. Right? So this is. It permits forbidden a pair of beanbags that reality comes back to life. Reincarnations are also an aspect of as reincarnations. Definitely, but this is a type of reality that returns, this reality that comes back to life. We mentioned an example of Moses, our Lord. The Gemara brought this example of Moses. The Gemara says resurrection of the uniforms to the Torah. Here this verse, you lie down and you get up, that is an expression of reincarnation, because this is not the same Moses with the same facial shape, but he returns in every generation. There is as if such an interpretation. It seems to me that Jacob asks that his braids be brought up to Israel, so that from the tunnels, as if yes, reincarnation from the caves, yes, so as if it is written, as if all souls return to the land of Israel. So do you understand that this is a parable that has some meaning, and we want to understand the meaning of this parable, that all the dead who were outside the land will return to the land of Israel, and the example of Jacob, who asks not to be buried in Egypt, so that there will be no reincarnation from the graves that must reach the land of Israel. What is this reincarnation from the graves? I don't know, but it is clear that there is some kind of process in which even those who died and were buried in exile also return to live in the land of Israel. That is to say, let's say, a Baal Shem Tov who died in White Russia and was buried there returns to live in the land of Israel. How does he return to live in the land of Israel? Maybe the Torah that does not return to live in the land of Israel? Maybe the path that does not return to live in the land of Israel? And the description of reincarnation from the graves means that perhaps even its essence returns to the land of Israel. But there is no doubt that in our generation there are many people who continue the path of the Baal Shem Tov of the righteous in Vilna, and the grace of other righteous people who are here in the land of Israel and do not need to go through some kind of process. Therefore, there is a great mitzvah to take the ashes of the righteous and transport them to the land of Israel. The mitzvah once asked me to transfer the old man who gave Rabbi Nachman to the land of Israel. I said, is a mitzvah, but they won't give it to you. The Ukrainians make good money on it for what they will give you. It's like an oil well, Rabbi Nachman, it's like what a spring flows, exactly, an oil spring flows. But it's clear, it's a reality that it comes back from the dead. You know, Rabbi Nachman 50 years ago it had no meaning. There were no people who were not followers of Rabbi Nachman almost in the land of Israel. This thing doesn't belong. There was Chabad, it was Gur, it was Zenz, it was Belz, it was Breslov, it was almost not, it was that Today there are so many rejections for the Bres followers, it's literally the resurrection of the dead. Oh, we talked about these stages. Yes, we talked about the days of the Messiah, and that it is a kingdom that returns in a process, like by the way the kingdom in David, not in Abimelech. There was Saul, there was David, there was Solomon. There is another thing called the temple, which is a place where ultimately all the nations of the world recognize the value of Israel, and they flock here in droves, and all the nations flock to it to learn the Torah, to follow in his ways and be guided by his spirit. This is also a process that is happening today. We don't yet see the Gentiles flocking to learn the Torah from this map, but there is definitely a process of beginning to recognize the kingdom of Israel. My son-in-law, Rabbi Greenberg, told me that he was here a while ago. A few years ago, there was a bucket here. Why was the king of Napalm? He is said to be the son of God. A man of God doesn't know all kinds of things. They took him on a tour in the south and showed him the Dead Sea somewhere. So his guide said to him, "You see, here is the lowest place in the world. In your place, Napalm, it is the highest place in the world, the best." So he said to him, "No, sir, you are wrong. You are in the highest place in the world. You brought morality and faith and the Bible and values to the people of Israel. You are the highest place in the world." He told the man that way. I guess he wasn't surprised. He needed some Gentile, probably a pagan, to tell him that you are the highest people in the world. Sometimes you need someone to tell you this from the outside. But there is nothing you can do about it. This is reality. And we are slowly seeing more and more people saying this sentence. Someone on Egyptian television had some idea now that said this in a way that combined it with a professor from a university. And no, they killed him, they didn't stone him, they didn't fire him from his job. He said, "It's the people who bring the gospel to the world, and we need to learn from him." A month ago, there was someone who said this in South Africa. Also, a Muslim cleric said these sentences, as they are clearly the leader of their leader. And I met many who said this. The world is slowly starting to recognize. Maybe it's not their official trumpets, but there is a process that the world is going through. And we see it. The world recognizes the vitality of the people of Israel. So right before the establishment of the state, there were a few who said this. Today, it is much more isolated. Today, the world recognizes, of course, through the economic side, through technology. It recognizes the vitality of the people of Israel. But also on the spiritual side, slowly, people are starting to recognize the centers of the people of Israel. When there is a temple, then that will be our main concern. The main thing is that the temple is the light of the world. Our way, but it is the light of the world. Rabbi, you can ask a question about technology and faith. Today, the studies on deniability and choice, in light of the limited development of artificial intelligence, are crazy. And it is already being talked about in science that within 20 years, technically, it will be impossible to live eternal life. Nanotechnology is already working on repairing within the body all the waste, as we call it, or it doesn't matter what a person did and ate and so on in the tools of his life. We are also talking about the age of 50 or 60. One of Google's partners says that he is building on this, and that is what he strives for, and therefore He does everything he does and develops. Google. And the question that was asked in the discussion we had in the family is actually, where is the choice? This all goes in the direction of redemption and the end of days and the Messiah in this context, because it also has another aspect, that when there is eternal life, even on a technical level, but let's say we are not yet worthy of it, then it can cause people like in the flood generation or in the sailing generation who sin because they know that there is plenty of time, and then it is possible to plan, and there is all the time in the world. It is possible to have some order in this matter in light of technology and innovation. I suggest that you all see an article written by Rabbi Kook in the Inaya on the verse all things, God made everything beautiful in its time, which explains that everything in the world comes in its time. He says that technological innovations came into the world at a time when the world was morally ripe for them. For example, the example of the atomic pasta, when the world he was responsible enough, so this discovery was revealed to him, yes. When the world was mature enough, then he discovered the scientific discoveries that belonged to that period, that is, the Holy One, blessed be He, did not give us scientific discoveries that were beyond our moral capacity. This came at the same time as the Zohar writes that the great discoveries of science were discovered in 600 BC. That is 166 or 150 years ago. This is the time in which we are, where the entire technological revolution, the entire religious revolution, is being read. The Zohar writes that it is part of the process of redemption. The entire process of the technological revolution in the world is part of a process that also has a spiritual revolution, that is, in parallel with the industrial revolution, the world is disgusted with its wells.